Thank you, Tina, for being willing to come on VOBB and talk about demos.
I am the happiest when I'm with my besties, so thank you for
I love it.
having me.
For anybody who's lived under a rock and doesn't know who Tina Morasco is, she is the queen of all things. Um, let's see, you do in-show narration, you coach, you're a casting director, you're also a voice talent, you're on-camera talent. I feel like every corner of this industry.
Yeah, I started out as an agent, so
Mhm.
there's that too. Yeah, I jokingly say I've sat in every seat in musical chairs voiceover game that there is, I've kind of like had my butt in each one of the seats at some point in the last like 30 years or so.
It gives you a unique perspective, I feel like. So we appreciate that perspective. So we'll just jump right in with the big question. What do you think the role of a demo is in 2024? Has it changed, evolved? What do you think it is?
Yeah, I think the role of a demo has always primarily been to procure representation. I really do think that is the number one role of a demo. But that said, there are a lot of talent out there that are doing their own direct marketing, that are on the pay to plays, that are really sort of spearheading their own work. And so the demo then is really their direct calling card. It serves as their marketing tool. So it's not just about representation anymore. It's kind of playing a much broader role. But I do think the commercial demo in particular is sort of your entry point into talent agents. I mean, that really is and always has been sort of the criteria that talent agents use to decide if you would be a good fit. And then once you're in that agency, then you might start getting opportunities in the other genres, but it's
Right.
really through your commercial demo that they sort of decide if there's interest or not.
Yeah, because your commercial demo really should show your range and your ability.
Yeah,
And that
absolutely.
tells an agent what you're capable of.
Absolutely. And it should also reflect that you have an understanding of the current market trends, how your voice specifically fits into those. So being self-aware, being like self-aware of, how you would conceivably play in the current world. And
Mhm.
then also being very well aware of everything that's going on in the commercial landscape, both, national brand campaign stuff all the way down to smaller mom and pop things and everything in between, and make sure that you kind of represent in all of those areas.
Yeah, I mean, and that's why a customized demo is so important
Yeah,
because it leans into all of those things. So
absolutely.
there's a lot of discussion about whether a demo should be self-made or produced professionally, and this seems to lean more towards produced professionally because someone who understands the current market and the brands. If you don't, I know when I first came in, I didn't have a clue what any of that stuff meant.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, unless you are, I mean, there are some exceptions out there. There are some people that are incredibly savvy. They're tech savvy.
Yeah.
They're smart. They're like, they're self-educated and they're good engineers. If you have like a great ear for music and a great ear for sound design and you feel like you can do all of that and produce it yourself, then go for it. And put it out there. You're not really spending any money. See how it goes and try it out. And if you don't get much of a response, then take a beat and then, kind of investigate professional producers. But yeah, ultimately, you want somebody who has their finger on the pulse of the market and who knows, exactly what clients are after, what's booking, what is, like specifically creatively what is being asked for.
Mhm.
Um and somebody that whose work you resonate with. I think that's the most important thing when you're interviewing demo producers. You have to listen to their body of work and listen and see if it feels like it is your energetic vibe. You know what I mean? Because
I
that's
like that.
really what it is a completely collaborative experience. And so you really need to go like, I can tell that that person is very, very, proficient at what they do, but it just doesn't feel like my vibe, right?
Mhm.
Every demo producer has a unique sound that is really, really specific to them. And, you just have to see like what resonates for you and how you feel like you could synthesize with that person's style.
So how long have you been making demos?
Oh, okay. So really, I have a very unique way of starting this demo process. So many, many moons ago, when I wasn't an agent, I was an agent at ICM in New York. And when I went over there, I don't know if you know this story or not, but when I went over there, they only had a celebrity department. So they
Right.
hired me to start their scale voiceover department. So we had no clients. So we started this department from scratch. I had literally
Didn't you say you even like walked out on the street and were
Oh, I
like,
would find jugglers. Oh my gosh. I can't even tell you how many people career I started that had didn't even know what a voiceover was. So because of that, so we were pulling people from all these different walks of performance life, teaching them how to do voiceover. So we had all these cool clients. Nobody had a demo. So I had to produce demos for every single solitary one of our clients. So we could produce an ICM, department reel. It was called a
right.
in the day. So I produced probably 60 demos. I produced demos for like celebrities, for Jeffrey Wright, Liev Schreiber, like Maren Hinkle. Like these
Sheesh.
were my clients that were like, they just literally didn't have a voiceover demo before. So it was just like guerrilla demo making. And I loved it. It became like instantly one of my favorite parts of my job as an agent because it was so creative. And so then I went to grad school for acting, came out as an actor, always coach and always produced demos on the side just because I had that,
That
really
love.
hands-on experience with it for so long. So I would say always. I've always done demos, probably like it's probably been since, the mid 90s. And, obviously they've changed drastically over the years. Um,
So let's talk about that a little bit. How
sure.
do you feel like demos have changed over the years in your experience?
Well, I think they've changed with as the styles of commercials change, so have demos, or at least that's the hope, right?
Right.
So, I'm sure there are a lot of demo producers that are still producing stuff that sounds like it was made in 1994, and we don't want to go to those people. You really want to make sure that the demo reflects, like as we mentioned before, the sign of the times and like what's currently being asked for. So I feel like back in the day, right, this is my whole soapbox of coaching, is that there are no more stylized reads in voiceover anymore, meaning there used to be the luxury car read and the warm
Hmm.
and the delicious food read and all of the things that you would use your voice
And check the
manipulatively, right?
boxes.
And then check the box. None of that exists, at least none of that exists in what we cast at Sound and Fury. Everything is about authenticity, and it's about which authentic version of you matches up with the specs and then figuring out what the story is, right? So I feel like back in the day, you had to have all your boxes checked. Like, here's your luxury car read, here's your cool hip girl next door, guy next door, person next door read. Here's your warm healthcare and on and on and on.
Hmm.
Now it's not about that. Now it's about, I would say the styles now, at least like in what I would produce, is like I would look at all the different categories based on, whoever the person is that I'm producing for, right? So if I were producing a demo for you, I would be like, okay, here are the categories I think we need to cover in terms of products, right? Like you should probably have a tech. You should probably have maybe like a young health and beauty thing. You should probably have like a car, but for you, I would do like a Jetta or like, some kind of like forward thinking electric, but kind of like family.
Subaru.
Yeah, Subaru would be
Yeah.
great. Um, like we kind of figure out all the things. And then simultaneously, we figure out all of the different styles that we also want to have covered. I don't mean like what I was just talking about, not
Right.
stylized reads, but like right now, there's so much that's like kind of like very subtle, understated observational. Then there's like inner monologue stuff, and you're definitely going to want something comedic, and you're going to want something really dropped in and vulnerable and sensitive for healthcare, maybe, or like an Eli Lilly, something like that. Um, and and then we kind of like take both lists, right? And go, okay, so maybe the inner monologue could be for Volkswagen. Maybe you're thinking back on your first Jetta, and so then we start matching, right, the styles of reads that we want to cover with the product categories that we also want to cover. And we figure out like, okay, what would match with what? And I usually do it based on, market research, like what kind of like what Volkswagen typically does in their commercials. Like, yeah, they do have these nostalgic thinking back reads. So that would be a good one to do like an inner monologue for. But of course, you never, ever, ever, ever use real scripts that have going around. You always rewrite them. Like I usually do scratch rewrites, but I'll use the concept of like, okay, this person is like remembering that first sweet taste of freedom, like riding in their Jetta. And then you'd write a whole monologue based on that, but based on the interest of the person whose demo it is. So if we were doing that spot, I would find out like, hey, what were you like when you got your driver's license? Like, like where would you go? Like when you had that first sweet taste of freedom, and like who would be riding shotgun with you, and da 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 da. And we weave all of those details in it, and then we write a script that is so tailor made for you that it's just effortless for those memories to come forward as you're speaking.
I love
And
that. It's
yeah,
not just what brands do you like,
yeah.
it's who are you and what is your brand and how can we weave that into this script?
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. So it's kind of a matching process of the types of reads that we want to make to reflect, and the categories that you would be very castable in.
Mhm.
And we merge those two things together, and then we add the specificity of you into that, if that makes sense.
It's a beautiful process. I love that. So if someone we talk a lot about custom scripts versus existing copy and it's obvious that you are on the custom script side, but does it really mean like that every script is original text, or is it sometimes a good portion of it comes from an existing ad but it's been tweaked and changed, and is that okay?
Yeah, I think on a demos, let's say you have 6 or 7 pieces total, I think probably 5 of them should really be pretty original.
Hmm.
You can kind of take the concept like we talked about, but then I would do like a pretty from scratch rewrite of it. But there are certain things that you want to reflect that like there's not that many different ways to say it, especially if it's like a tag or,
Right.
something short. So yeah, you just want to change it enough that it's, you're not plagiarizing anything. So I think it can be a little bit of a hybrid of both. But I think the more original, like the demos that I have produced that I've been the proudest of, that have had the most success, what people are responding to is how original the copy is, how funny the copy is, and how the copy absolutely brings out the essence of that person.
Okay, I love it. So do you what do you let's see, you coach, and
Uh-huh.
your process is that you only really work with a few people who want to make a demo that you have coached with. You're not so somebody's not going to call you up and say, "Tina, make me a demo," and I've never coached with you.
Yeah, and unfortunately right now I've had to pause demo production because my life is I coach actors twice a day before casting. So I only have 2 spots a day for coaching. And,
Wow.
and I start casting, from, I'm on the East Coast now. So I coach at
Yep.
11, I coach at 12, and then I start casting at 1. And then I go usually until 11 or 12 at night. So it's like 12-hour days. So I had to press pause on demo production because to do it well and to do it, with integrity, it really requires all of the time of like selecting the selection
Yeah.
process, the interview process of getting those rich, vivid details from the client, then the rewriting process, then the music selection. That is like honestly my favorite part and the most time consuming part, to get really excellent music that closely aligns with what the brand has used previously, but obviously isn't the same. I'm such a music snob, so that is my jam, but it takes hours and hours and hours and hours and
I
hours.
believe it.
So I had to press pause on my production, but my process up until when I pressed pause was, yeah, I usually only produce demos for people that I had a long standing coaching history with, because I knew them really well, and it was easy to sort of like collaborate and get those details from them and really make something that felt unique to them. But I have in the past done demos for people that just kind of came to me cold, and in that process, I would do several coaching sessions before we even started like script selection, to really get a sense of who they were and get to know them, and to make sure that they were directable and able to compete. So that's the other thing, is that I wouldn't really dive into a demo with somebody that I thought like, because I do feel like with direction, I could probably get good reads out of anyone in a demo session, but you want to make sure that,
They can
you
self-direct.
yeah, and they can do it consistently on everything under the sun that they're going to get thrown once that agent bites and says, okay, here's your 3-month trial period. And then you don't want them to be like totally in over their head. So I try to make sure the foundation is laid, that I would feel good about hearing their auditions come through the way they're, kind of like approaching them without much direction from me before we go into that process.
So do you feel like, or what would you say to people who think that there should be a separation of church and state, so to speak, between like casting should only cast and demo producers should only produce demos and coaches should only coach? What would you say to these people?
Well, then I would be in voiceover jail right now, because I do. So I would say, let me out of jail. I think, I just think that as you well know, right? Like, nobody is one thing. We all wear many, many, many hats. Now, it's difficult to be excellent at the many hats you wear, but there are a lot of people who are excellent at wearing various hats. And, like over the course of my career, like, we were talking about,
Sat in
I
all the chairs.
sat in all the chairs. So like I have experience. Now, the thing that I won't do, and actually recently I've been approached a few times, is I won't coach or produce demos in promo, and I won't coach or produce demos in narration, even though I am a talent in both of those areas and I do my fair share of those areas. I don't feel like I have my finger on the pulse of those markets. So I'm not sure exactly what the buyers in those markets are buying. I don't know exactly what the
Right.
feedback is from the horse's mouth, which is why I stay in my lane of commercials, because I'm getting that information on the daily. And I'm literally getting that feedback from the clients themselves of exactly what they want to hear. So I can confidently say, you know what, you might hear it on the air like this, but this is what our clients are saying. So, that's what I would want to present to you, and not like, give you something that was outdated 10 years
So
ago.
so definitely you would say that demo producers should niche down to the genres that they have experience in. Now, for some that might be a variety, and
Yeah.
some it's going to be just one, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I think you want to interview your producer and find out what their current day-to-day exposure is to people who are hiring the talent in those genres.
Mm,
And, I do think that should be a criteria, because um truly, otherwise, like, let's say I wasn't casting anymore. I think I would still be relevant for probably a year or two, right? But
mhm.
then unless I was somehow getting the inside skinny from my friends on the inside and casting, I wouldn't know either. It's like some of the things I always coached and I always produced demos before I started casting, but everything shifted. My entire approach to coaching and casting and producing shifted once I got this bird's eye view of exactly what's booking. So, I think that's really, really helpful to have. And there are plenty of demo producers out there who are casting,
Right.
who are like, producing or engineering for, all the different genres. So they're also exposed and hearing that too. And then there are demo producers who are just excellent at what they do, and so they do their research and they stay up to date on everything. So just make sure that's one of the boxes you check when interviewing
I
someone.
like that. The way you phrase that specifically, make sure how are they in tune to that
Mhm.
What's being cast in that market right now,
Right now.
right
Yeah,
now.
absolutely, because you definitely wanna make sure your demo is current, and, you know, it changes. It doesn't change drastically. It's like a very, very, very subtle, almost like, the
I hear
frog.
it in mine now. I'm at the point where I'm like, my demo's coming up on 3 years old, and my skill level has changed, my
Yeah,
coaching, my access to good scripts and auditions. When I made that demo, I hadn't signed with an agent yet. Well, I signed right before I made it, but I think that it's just that's a brings up a good question. How does a talent know when it's time? If you're already signed with an agency and you're doing well and you're booking work, is there any reason to update a demo, or is it
you know, here's a hot take. I feel like once you're situated, unless you need it for your marketing purposes or whatever, and your agent isn't really asking, I can tell you this, we don't ever listen to demos in casting,
good to
ever.
know?
Once in a blue moon, we'll have to do a demo pull because either the script is too confidential or the client just doesn't have time to for us to run a full audition. And it's like one of the things that we dislike the most because a lot of demos are outdated.
Mhm.
What they're looking for exactly, we have to hunt and peck and find, and then we'll edit your demo to put that particular thing up front. It takes us
Way
so
more work.
longer. Yeah. And it's supposed to be easier, but it's actually much, much more challenging. So for casting purposes, this is specifically from a casting point of view. We don't really use them. So, if you're situated well and your agents are happy with your demo and they're saying, we're not really sending your demo out very often because everything is about the live audition and you
Mhm.
don't feel like investing another chunk of change into it, then let it ride. If you, so here's the other thing though, that's possible if you've booked a lot of stuff that you're really proud of, right? If you've done some jobs that you love, just grab the copies of those spots, get them from production, from the ad agency, get permission, and then weave them into your existing demo, pull the best of
Yeah,
that, of your old demo, and then pick out the parts that you want to weave in, and then just pay a really excellent engineer or demo producer to just create a little mix of the old and the new. That's
it's
a
like a
great,
hybrid approach.
yeah, just freshen it up, and that's great too. Um, and that also leads me to the age-old question of should your demo be examples of real work or should it be, created stuff? Back in the old days, it was unheard of to do fake spots on a demo. Like we had
Right,
to do it for these clients because they didn't have real spots. But typically, you were so proud when you could finally make a demo, when you finally could cobble together enough real material to have a demo. It was really a source of pride of
pride.
I've made it, I've made it. I have 6 spots that I could put together on a demo. And I'm not sure when that really changed, but the demo really used to be a demonstration of the work that you have done. And
Mhm.
then somewhere along the line, it kind of became like a demonstration of the work that you're capable of doing. And there's a certain freedom in that. I
Yeah,
totally understand that perspective because you could book things that kind of pigeonhole you in a certain way, right? But you're like, no, 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 I'm perfectly capable of doing X, Y, and Z. So let me just show that off. So, I'm a fan of a little bit of both. If I were producing a demo for you, I would be like, okay, let's see what you have. Let's
yeah.
pull out all of the things that you've gotten copies of in the last year, keep it current. And then let's pull out the best of that. And then we'll fill in the holes based on okay, I don't think you have, I don't think you have that sensitive, vulnerable thing. So let's create that. Let's create, the observational comedy thing.
Yeah.
And then weave in, if you have great retail, then great. Then we don't have to do that.
And it sounds like that might even be another reason to update a demo is if you find yourself in a place where you have, your skill set has changed and you want to show something else you're capable of to your agent. It's another
Absolutely.
reason to resend and say, "Hey, did you know I
Mhm.
can also do this?"
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
that's awesome. So, do you mind sharing when you were doing demos? Do you mind sharing how much you charged for a demo, or was it
Yeah,
case by case?
sure. No, at the height, It was 2,500, and that included soup to nuts, everything. So I do hire a copywriter who is like an actual copywriter for an ad agency, who's like my
Nice.
funny. I have two of my funniest friends, best copywriters on planet Earth. So good. So that includes their fee, that includes the engineer fee, that includes all of my time of picking the musics and script selection and rewriting the scripts, all of it.
Mhm.
Um, which I know it sounds like a lot, but I have to tell you, like, it really boils down to not very much per hour
Yeah.
of labor on that part. And I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying, like, there's so much that a demo producer does that the client doesn't really ever see, like the
Yeah.
time it takes to pick the music, the time it takes to like get the scripts just right, all of the rehearsal time, all of the, actual day of the session and interfacing and all of the, sort of psychology behind it of like keeping you calm in the session and knowing exactly how to hype you and knowing exactly how to direct you in that moment and balancing everything with the engineer and you're doing a lot. So,
And people aren't just paying for your time, they're paying for your experience, your
yeah.
expertise.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
That is true.
So, the next question was, are you producing all the aspects? But you've explained it out. You have copywriters and you work with a team, which I love. So, if a talent, let's say you say, I could make demos again, I have a little extra time, and a talent comes to you and wants to collaborate, and they've got their own scripts, maybe they had their, some of their own work that they had done, and they already had recorded it. Would you be open to picking the music and making sure everything worked and rewriting some if they needed it, or would rather full
I would
service?
rather, yeah, I'm a little bit of, I have a real specific
Real.
style. Yeah, I have a real specific style that I find anytime I've ever tried to deviate and sort of accommodate different things, I always feel like I'm settling and I feel like I'd
Mhm.
rather just kind of start from scratch and we do it together, but we do it from scratch together. I mean, that said, we can incorporate real spots that you have if you're like,
Right.
hey, I've been the voice of this retail brand for 2 years. I really want people to know that, of course. But I also think it's very, I always want to be very, very respectful of other people's work. So if somebody produced, somebody else's previous demo, I wouldn't want to like take part of
Yeah.
that and cobble it into mine because then it just feels like stepping on toes in a way. And I feel like everybody's got their signature and it's like you can still use your old demo and then you can make a new demo and you can have them both on your website, and it's
Yeah.
like different styles, different times in your life and all that good stuff. So
Love it.
yeah. The other thing that I want to just add is that one of the little tricks that I like to do is but this is from the perspective of I always like it to at least sound like they could all be real spots that
Right.
you've done. I will change the microphone that you're recording different spots on based on what kind of like, vibe it is. I will move where you are in the booth, we'll change positions, we'll do a little break and then we'll switch up your energy and so I want things to not sound static, like you've recorded them
Mhm.
all in the exact same session at the exact same time. And just to kind of make it sound like these are all done at different points in your life and not all produced in the same exact session. So that
That
just kind
seems
of,
brilliant.
it does change, it changes it. So we'll do some on a Sennheiser, some on a Neumann, like, so, we'll just kind of like mix it up a little bit. Um, I don't know. I don't know how much of a difference it makes, but I think it just adds a little bit of, I don't know, a little bit of nuance.
Personality. Yeah.
Yeah, and nuance.
Nuance. I
There's
like
like
that nuance.
subtlety to like subtle differences that you can't quite pinpoint.
Well, I know I sound significantly different on different microphones,
Yeah.
so it's got to it's got to make a difference. So
Mhm.
that brings me to a question: do you evaluate a home studio, or do you have somebody record always in a professional studio?
So when I was still, so my engineer is in LA. So when I was in LA, if the client was also in LA, they would come to the studio and it would be a really, really fun day,
I'll
like a
bet.
really fun collaborative experience. And he's got all of the toys, so
Mhm.
we can play with a million different mics in a million different positions and all of that. So that's the ideal scenario. But now I'm on the East Coast and he's in LA and, clients are wherever they are. So there are all kinds of ways to do it. I will absolutely make sure that the sound quality of the home studio is broadcast quality, and I'll have my engineer evaluate that before we record. And then usually the client and he are on Source Connect. We're all on Zoom together. I'm
Mhm.
hearing the Source Connect feed through Zoom, and he has his panel up, and I'm looking at his screen. I'm like, okay, so I want the first part of yellow and like the second part of blue and cobble that together for me. Let's take a listen. And,
Yeah,
I like to complete everything before we move on to the next.
love it. So, it sounds like you have a whole process for how you evaluate talent to make sure they're ready. I heard you talk about that they need to be directable, that they need to have a home studio, that they need to be able to have differences in their read. And is there anything that I'm missing on like what you feel like when a talent is ready for a demo?
Yeah, no, my main criteria, just because my casting hat is usually the hat that I'm wearing, is are like, if what I will have them do is like, when we're rehearsing, I'll be like, what, prep these 3 scripts and send me your reads before we get together for our next
Hmm.
session. And if those reads are competitive, if I would put those through confidently to our client, if like, you would make the cut to get through, then I feel like you're ready to make a demo. Like if you're ready to compete in the market on a very, very high level, then I feel like you're ready to make a demo. Now, that's not as elusive as it sounds. It just
Right.
means like, hey, are you telling the story authentically? Are you living through the moments truthfully? Do you have a relationship with the person you're talking to? Is your natural personality shining through, all of those things. And even if it's not, there is no perfect, right? But even
Right.
if it's not exactly how I want it off the bat, do I hear all of those elements? And then if I direct you and give you one set of direction, can you take that direction, incorporate it, and go? And if that's the answer, then I know I could trust you in a session. And then I say, yes, it's time.
Awesome. All right. Well, my last question is normally why should a talent choose to work with you specifically? But since you're not making demos right now, tell me, is there anything that you would like to add about demos? And feel free to pitch your coaching library as well.
Oh, thank you. Is there, I feel like we've had a pretty exhaustive conversation about it.
I think it's been great.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think we've kind of covered the bases. Um, I would say don't mix genres on a single demo. Sometimes I hear that mistake being made. So you don't want to have a promo on a commercial demo, or,
Yeah.
and you don't really want to have character voices on your commercial demo because there's so few well, at least in the stuff that we cast, there's so few characters in
Yeah.
commercials anymore. Once in a while, we'll have a fun one, but if you do put a character on there, make sure it actually came from a real commercial and it's not like some wacky animated
You
thing
made
that,
up.
like, I love my voice of Millhouse, so I'm going to put it in this commercial demo if it kills me. Um, so yeah, I think that would be the only thing that we didn't cover. And thank you for generously queuing me up for the live. Yeah, so I did create this, because my time is so limited and I only coach actors twice a day. It has been like, it like pains me when people reach out for coaching to be like, my next available is July
Yeah.
and it's February. So I created what's called the library, and it's about 3.5 at this point hours of my foundational coaching content broken into bite-sized videos that you can watch on repeat if you need to. And it's a way to have me in the booth with you literally 24/7, anytime you need me. And the videos are broken up into like, how do you find the story in every script? How do you make a pre-life that really works? What's the difference between take one and take two commercially? Because that's very different than it used to be. And it's very different than animation and promo and other genres. Like, um, what do you do when there's a breaking of the fourth wall? How much ad-libbing is too much? All of those questions. There's a video that really addresses it. And then I have like bonus content and updated videos where I do workouts of like, hey, here's a boot camp video. Let's find the story, even in the most challenging scripts that feel totally retail and that there is no story here. How do you find the story even in those? And so it's a one-time purchase. You become a lifetime member. And as things change and I get new learnings from the front lines of casting, I shoot a new batch of videos and then I drop them and you never pay again. You just get a little like ding, ding, ding. Hey,
You
Alicia.
just got new content.
Yes, exactly. There's new content. Go to your library.
Yeah, you just updated it, didn't you? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I did. I updated it. I shot a new batch like in the late summer, and then I dropped an update every month through Christmas. And then now the big exciting news now is I'm actually in the final stages of having it translated into Spanish for the Latin American market.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, so Spanish subtitles. So it's still me talking, but with Spanish subtitles. And I'm putting a lot of care into it and making sure that it's incredibly accurate. And the person who's translating it is a voice actor, and she's lived in almost every country in, Central and South America and Spain. And, so she really, really, really knows all of the different dialects. And so that's going to launch before Voiceover Atlanta. So that's the next latest and greatest. And then I'll probably shoot another batch of updates like right after that.
That is amazing. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And everybody find Tina and learn all the things from her. And we appreciate you.
Oh my gosh, thanks so much for having me and for all of the fabulous information that you are sharing with the voiceover community. You guys are doing such a great service, and I'm really always happy to support in whatever way I can.
Thank you so much.
You're
Bye.
welcome. Bye.